Hello crafters and welcome to P2P Winter online show brought to you by From Picture to Page and Beyond Papercraft shows. I'm Michelle Brown, Creative Director From Picture to Page, which is our scrapbooking, mixed media art and paper crafting community, and I'm so excited that you're here to be part of our community today. Now, P2PCrafts Winter online show has a fantastic lineup of demonstrations from our talented retailers. So for all the details, head over to our website from picturetopageandbeyond.com.au where you can see who's going to be on, what they're doing, be the place to catch all the replays. And while you're there, make sure you sign up to our email list so we can let you know exactly what's coming out with From Picture to Page, and of course all the updates and the summaries of the week as well. Now, whether you're watching us here live on Facebook or you're watching a replay on Facebook or on YouTube, we would love to know that you're there. So pop in the comments and say hello, just like Susie has and Kirsten's done, and it's so lovely to have everyone there. Now, of course, if you do have any questions, pop them in the comments as well, and myself and our guests will do our very best to answer them as we go along, or of course, we will circle back and make sure we get to you. So, I think without further ado, we will announce our new guests. So today with P2PCrafts Winter Online with Jen from Peninsula Paper Craft Boutique. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, everybody.
Oh, it is so good to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's so exciting.
And you're keeping warm down on the Mornington Peninsula?
It's a pretty nice day today. The sun is shining, so it's a bit windy, but yeah, it's a pretty nice winter day.
Yeah, a very good crafting day.
Definitely. It's always a good crafting day.
That is true.
Never need an excuse for that.
Now, you have got some gorgeous new things to show us today. Tell us what you're going to be showing off.
I do. We're going to do some tags today, which, of course, as you said in your intro, you can use the techniques that I show you on any format that you use in your crafting. We're going to use alcohol inks, and we're going to introduce the new range of stamps that we have in store called Fairy Hugs.
Fairy Hugs. Tell us about that, because I don't think many will have heard of that before.
No, it's a brand new stamp company from Florida in the USA, and they have introduced themselves to us as a companion, I suppose, to Lavinia stamps. So their collection works alongside with your Lavinia stamps. It's not a competition. Like, they don't go against them. They work beautifully together.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Excellent. And I think we could always do with some fairy and a little bit of magic in our lives, couldn't we?
Always. It makes everything better. A little bit, sprinkle a bit of fairy dust.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, shall we jump right in?
Yeah, go for it.
Fantastic. Okay, so while Jen's getting ready, we'll say hi, Wendy. Hi, Marilyn. Yeah, it is such a lovely day, isn't it? Lisa and Christine, it is so nice to have you all joining us. And like Jen said, I'm really excited because it's not often we get to see a whole new stamping company and a new range. And there is just something about having that touch of magic. So I think Jen is ready. So Jen, take it away.
Okay, so today we're going to have lots of fun and play. So I'm going to go through a few different techniques with using your alcohol inks, because it's one of my favorite mediums to use because it's just so much fun, and it's a good way to just create lots of backgrounds and enjoy using different techniques. And we're going to finish our tags off with using some Fairy Hug stamps. So they have a massive collection of beautiful stamps, these beautiful clouds, which is hard to see. I'll put some white behind it. There you go. When I first saw these, I was like, I don't think I've seen clouds like this, but I've been focusing so much at watching nature. Mm-hmm. And I drove home from work the other day and saw a cloud looking exactly the same as these stamps. And I'm like, I have to make that background in those colours and use it. It's so fun.
Oh, lovely. And what a great idea to have some really small fairies as well.
Yes, these cute little condo dwellers are beautiful. So they're a lot of fun, and I've used them. I'll find the tag that I finished on here with the dotted mushroom stamp as well.
Yeah.
So they are lots and lots of fun to work with, mm-hmm. and to add. They've got they're so beautiful. And they'll work well with your Lavinia stamps. So remember, everyone who is watching, we have 20% off the entire store until midnight Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. So that'll be Sunday the 25th of July?
Yes. Yeah, so have a look on there and check out and add to. They've even got these cute little dragons. This is called Dodie. Where is he? Here he is.
Oh,
How cute is he?
fantastic. And for all of those that love, How to Train Your Dragon or Aragon or so
He's
many
such a
good
cute
dragons.
one, and they've got a large size dragon as well. So it's super, super cute. So to have a play with our alcohol inks, we are going to get started. So I'm using some pearls and some glitters. And remember, when you are using those, you do need to shake them up, which I did do quite a bit before. See, I'm like, not going to be here all day shaking up. But you want to make sure that the base has got all of that pigment and the glitters all mixed in together. So the first technique with our alcohol inks, we are going to use our blending tool. So this is a felt pad. This one is the Couture Creations heart-shaped one, so beautiful, and comes in this cute little stand that you can keep on your desk. Very cute. And with the felt pad, so what you're going to do is just add dots of colour onto your felt pad. Now you don't need too much of it. Just add. What I found personally, I like starting with the dark on the top and then finishing adding on my light colours, just because sometimes if you go the other way you tend to lose those light colours.
Oh, okay, that's interesting because quite often we would start light to dark. So for these inks, you say dark to light.
Yeah, for this particular technique. So it always changes depending on what you're doing. This is just how I prefer it and how I found works. So once it's on there, don't add anything else on there. You can use blending solution or isopropyl alcohol to keep spreading it, but in a small surface, you're only going to need the alcohol inks. If you add blending solution on there, it's going to mix the colours together and change them. But for this particular technique, I want those colours to stay the same. So on the alcohol ink paper.
So that was what Jackie was just asking. What surface are you working on?
I am using the Couture Creations adhesive alcohol ink paper. So the adhesive makes it easy to finish the tag once I've cut it out. So these are the Couture Creations nesting tags that I've got. Which we have in stock, or we've got the Hero Arts tags as well, the nesting tags, or infinity dies, I think they're called. So it's a bit hard to see.
Yes, it's a little bit hard to see the colour. Maybe if you just sort of shade it. There we go. Yep.
I just turn my light off. That might help a little bit. So this way, you'll just keep adding the texture and adding that pattern. Keep adding the colour on and just stamping on and just waiting and watching as those pieces, the alcohol inks is moving.
Yeah. So perhaps if you just sort of put it on a bit of an angle to take the light out of it. Yeah, there we go. Now we can see the colour. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really hard to see the colour. But you're just going to keep going until the alcohol ink dries.
Right, until it dries.
Just keep tapping away, letting it move, and once it's sort of moved a bit more, adding a bit more. And then if I can tip it that way, so you can see that texture.
Yeah.
So it's more of like a speckled effect.
I'm thinking it looks like galvanizing, but that's just me and my engineering brain.
So there's lots of different ways you can see it, but it's a lot of fun. I think I've used it. You might be able to see it a bit more in that one, the pattern in the background there. So once you have finished that one, we're going to set that aside to dry, because before we stamp anything on the alcohol ink paper, it needs to be super, super dry.
Right. And I know there's lots of variables, but how long do you find it takes to dry?
So if you were wanting to stamp on and finish the project like we are today, I'd recommend using a cool setting on a hairdryer. So try not to use your heat tool because you will melt the plastic paper.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. How did you figure that out?
Lucy, Lucy Campanue she's a Couture Creations designer from Archet Angel. She actually gave us that technique when we worked with her, learning how to best use the alcohol inks. So I can set this aside because I'm going to do another technique and I'll dry them all at the end.
Yeah. So it's sort of just half an hour or so, or are you thinking overnight?
Yeah, no, it should only be over about half an hour or so. It could be like 5 minutes depending on if you've got a heater on in your room.
Yeah.
And it also depends on the ink that you're going to use over the top.
Right.
So if you're using a StazOn or an archival ink, they are solvent inks.
Yep.
So they will move the alcohol inks if you go to stamp over the top. And if they're wet, you're going to get like a fuzzy image.
Right.
A Memento is probably your better option, being that it's a dye ink and it's a water-based ink. Or you've got your Lavinia Elements graphite in the black as well. So there's lots of different options, but make sure that your ink is dry before you do any stamping. So our second technique is just your basic adding colour on and using your alcohol ink blower. So just dropping colour on as much or as little as you like.
Oh, and what colour's that? That's a pretty one.
That one's Intrigue, it's pearl. And I have a feeling that these colours have the old couture names on them.
Right.
So I will pop up the colours and their actual colours that we have available in store after this. I'll pop them in the comments. Okay, so once you've added your colour on, you're just going to use an alcohol ink blower, or if you have a straw, you can just blow through a straw to move that ink around. Now, I haven't added any isopropyl alcohol or blending solution onto this. This is just alcohol inks straight on there.
Right. And so, yes, Michelle was asking, does the blower replace the straw?
Yes. It saves your lungs.
And it's probably safer having your whole head a bit further away from alcohol inks.
Well, that is true. You do not want to suck in the fumes, so make sure that you are working in a well-ventilated area. These are just $10 and it's 20% off at the moment. So we have lots of these in stores. So the alcohol ink blowers are fantastic. I prefer this one from Couture other than the Tim Holtz one. Only because the Tim Holtz one is quite large and I have very little hands. So this one works perfectly for me.
Yeah, and Michelle points out it also makes sure there's no kid spit in it as well, which is a very valid point in these times.
That is true. That's very good, Michelle. So you can add in a little bit more colour to get any gaps filled that you want. But it is very different in the look that comes out from using those different techniques. So that's our first two. So that was with our blending tool. This one's with our ink blower.
Excellent, yeah. And Kathy just points out, yeah, definitely don't use a straw because you may inhale the fumes. So yes, definitely don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, so the best thing is like they do say like you're okay to use a straw and it's not the best, but when you're using a blending solution, do not put that in a spray bottle or in a using that with your straw because it's got toxins in it and you don't want those in your lungs.
No.
Keep yourself safe.
Yeah. So Janine was just asking, were you just using the alcohol inks for those first two demonstrations?
Yes, just the alcohol inks. So nothing else on those. This is where we're going to bring in some isopropyl alcohol. So I've decanted mine into the a little container. Now the difference with your isopropyl alcohol and your blending solution is going to bind those colours and help them create new colours together. The isopropyl alcohol is like water is to watercolour, so it helps fade those colours out and keeps them a bit lighter.
Right. So that's, really good to understand the differences there. And like everything, have a play with your solutions and understand what they do and don't do.
Exactly. So then with the paintbrush, just adding some colours on. So I've got isopropyl alcohol on the bottom because that's going to help the colours move, so you don't need too much alcohol ink over the top. And then this is where, like, again, going from light to dark, just using the paintbrush to move that colour along your tag and helping those colours blend in together. So if you start with your dark to light, you're going to end up just with a mess.
Yeah. And so do they blend? You need to be a bit conscious on what colours you use?
Yes, you will. You will find that if you're using like a green in anything, that's going to create a beautiful brown colour. So you do have to be careful with your mixes, but it's not as... It's pretty hard to get mud when you're using your alcohol inks. So if you do, just count yourself as very talented.
Right, excellent. Now, Janine was just asking, is the isopropyl the same as from the supermarket?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So is that like in the first aid section or the hardware section?
It's usually in the first aid section.
Right.
But we sell isopropyl alcohol in 1 litre bottles from Couture Creations.
Right.
I don't have any in store at the moment. I have some in a delivery on its way. So if you can't add it to your order this weekend, just send us an email or add it to your notes and we can add it on, and we will honour the 20% off if you'd like.
Oh, excellent. And Michelle was just asking, do you sell the little containers that you decanted it into?
I haven't as yet, but I do have plenty of them, so I can pop them up. Or if you do order the isopropyl alcohol, I'll pop that in your order as a free gift.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Jen.
That's okay. Okay, so this one is quite wet, and when you're using the isopropyl alcohol, like, it does take longer to dry than when you're using straight alcohol. So this is what, like 5-7 minutes since I started this one. It's completely dry. Nothing's coming off.
Yep.
This one's pretty close. This one's going to take a little bit. So we'll get our hairdryer out. We'll just dry those off. Whoop.
Now, Wendy was just asking, can you use the alcohol inks on normal paper?
Sorry?
Can you use the alcohol inks on normal paper?
Okay, so this technique with the blending tool, yes, you absolutely can. Now, if you're finding it's taking too long to dry and annoying you, you can grab some just normal cardstock, pop it over the top.
Yep.
Pick up that colour. And you've got the colour on the tag itself. So you will find that it has taken off most of the colour on the tag, so you can build that up again and keep going. So that's another way of using just normal paper. So if you don't have a lot of the alcohol ink paper, because it can be quite expensive to use, you can just use the same piece over and over again and then just adding it onto cardstock.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Doing it in this way also makes it's dry straight away.
So the normal card really soaks it in, whereas the alcohol paper or something gloss really sits on top.
It does, and you have to wait for the alcohol ink to evaporate, whereas once it's on there, it's dry, it's ready to go, and you will find it's easier to stamp on your normal cardstock than on your alcohol ink paper.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, so
Diane was just asking, will we have a list? And on the Picture to Page website, we'll list out all the things that you've used as well.
Yes, we'll definitely have a list of everything that I've done. I was not very organised. Usually I give that to Michelle beforehand.
No, not at all.
What I'm had my alcohol inks in is just this little desk storage container, which is great. So it just keeps all your bottles neat and tidy on your desk and sitting up ready, easy to access.
Oh, nice.
So we can pop those back in there.
Yeah, like we're not always the tidiest crafters, but sometimes a little bit of organisation goes a long way with those types of things.
Definitely. I am definitely not a tidy crafter, and it's terrible. There's stuff everywhere all over my desk, and I have to every Friday make sure I clean up before Joe comes in.
Well, there may have been some tidying up going in the Picture to Page headquarters before Wendy arrived this morning.
It's funny. It's like someone else coming in will always make us do it. Otherwise, we love chaos. This is why we craft.
Well, I don't know if we love chaos. We're just doing so many things. We're like, okay, I'll just leave that one. I'll come back to it. And then you do that a few times and then there's lots of things happening and nothing finished. Now, tell us about that surface you're working on as well, Jen.
Okay, so this is the Tim Holtz craft mat. This one we don't actually have in stock at the moment, but it is a fantastic mat if you can source it. Mm-hmm. I love it. The mat we do sell is from Couture Creations, and same kind of premise, glass mat. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to clean. That was just a baby wipe and paper towel, and it's just come straight off. So it's fantastic. All right. So this is the Couture Creations stamp press. Mm-hmm. I love this, but if you've just got your ink blocks, we'll use those ones too. We need a moon, though, before we do any stamping. So
we're certainly going to have a moon tonight. It's full moon this week.
Oh, cool. I love this technique. So I've been watching quite a lot of Lavinia videos. Uh-huh. The Lavinia stamps are just awesome, but have a look at this. Just grab a baby wipe.
Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, look at that. About 3 seconds, I've got myself a moon.
Oh, wow. I thought you might have embossed that on top, but no, you've just taken the colour away.
Just taken the colour away. So make sure you dry that off again. Yep. And you can keep going. I kind of like having a bit of the colour in the background. So I don't want to take it all off, but you can just keep going and it will come completely off. So if there's any background that you make that you go, do you know what? Not fantastic. And I really don't want to just keep going and keep adding because it's just not working. So if you really don't like something, grab your baby wipe and just wipe it off.
Oh, and then this leaves a really nice pastel colour, so yeah.
It does. And like if you keep going, like it will just come off completely. Yeah. But it's really fun because if you have that as the background.
Yeah.
This is how I ended up with this colour. I don't know how I would ever recreate it because it's awesome. But I didn't like what was underneath, so I wiped it off and I restarted it, and I ended up with this beautiful colour that is just amazing but completely different to the colours I used underneath. So they're pretty similar to the colours that I used, which was the Intrigue, the Splendour, and Enchanted, I think, for the pearl colours. So, yeah, they're completely different, same colours. Okay, so we've got our moon.
Aren't we clever? It's amazing when we do that.
We are going to add our stamps on. So, what are we going to use? Let's use our little fairy. This is one of their new little fairies. This is called Dixie. Mm-hmm. She's very cute. Well, the sun disappeared outside. That's a bit sad.
Yeah, I think it's raining here, but that's okay. I can still hear you over the rain on the tin roof.
Okay, so position your fairy wherever you want it. You might want her all the way in the moon, just coming off the moon, and we're going to give her something to stand on in a little bit. So just adding her on. Just going to stick to my alcohol inks. Let's use the Lavinia graphite. Ink up your stamp. And add her on.
So Christine and Em say it's pouring in Bendigo. So hopefully everyone who needs the rain is getting it today.
Oh, it was pouring in Bendigo when we were there at the show.
It was. Oh my goodness. Now Michelle's asking, what's the advantage of this stamp, the stamp organizer rather than a straight block?
Okay, so I was just about to mention that.
Oh, well done.
No, that was a perfect question. Can you see that this fairy is pretty well stamped, but she's not beautifully, completely solid. Now, if I had done that on a block, I may have got to go and, how am I supposed to stamp her again, like perfectly without giving that shadow? That's where this stamp press comes into its own, because I can ink up the stamp again. I can stamp over her again and get a beautiful, solid stamp without any shadowing.
Yeah, it certainly does change the way we stamp, doesn't it?
It does. So it's a tool that I use all the time. Like, it doesn't replace the acrylic blocks because they still have their place, but it is something that a tool like I would add to your collection when you can, because it is a fantastic tool to use. I can't even think. Okay, so when you are stamping with dye ink over the top of alcohol ink on the alcohol ink paper, you do need to dry your ink before you move, because otherwise it's just going to wipe off.
Yep.
But the best part, just like adding that moon in, if you have stamped wrong and you don't like it, wipe it off, start again.
Excellent. That's good to know.
Alcohol ink off as well, but you'll need to start again. And you can come in quite close with your hairdryer because it is on a full setting and it's not going to affect the paper in any way. So just drying that one off. Okay. And this is where the block is going to come in, because we're going to add our clouds. So adding a scrap bit of paper, because clouds are not purely black, they are usually grey or white. So you want to stamp off first on a scrap bit of paper, and then stamp on to your project.
Ah.
Ink it up again, stamp off, and then onto your project.
Oh, wow.
So it's there, but it's not really there, which is what you want, because you want your fairy to shine.
Excellent. A couple more questions, Jen. So Samara was asking, can you use the Couture Creations stays in place inks, and would they need to be heat set?
Yes and yes.
Right.
So, well, not heat set, like because it's an alcohol ink, like it's an alcohol based. So you want to make sure that your ink is dry completely, and then with the hairdryer, the cool setting on the hairdryer, because if you do then try to keep working over the top, it is going to wipe off.
Right.
But these are great little pads, and you have to ink them up yourself. So
okay.
It something different for you.
Yeah. And now Jenny also asks, can you emboss on alcohol ink paper and with alcohol inks?
Yes, you can. You do have to make sure that your heat tool, like, it's going to take a little bit extra time because you don't want to have your heat too close to the alcohol ink paper. So yes, just be careful not to get it too hot, otherwise it's going to melt it.
Yeah, so perhaps experiment, but I think probably the embossing is not the best technique to add on top of this one.
No, not necessarily, but you can do it. And like, if instead of using the alcohol ink paper, if you have transferred the alcohol inks onto your standard cardstock, then you could go stamp and emboss, no problem.
Yep.
That way you've got your alcohol inks, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's more that the paper would melt rather than...
Exactly.
not
And
work.
if it's not melt, it'll warp and it's just, then you'll be sad. So
Yeah. Unless that's a technique you're going for, of course, happy mistakes.
exactly. It depends on what we're going to do. So we're going to add in what are we going to do? Give her something to stand on. So this is a technique that I learnt when I was doing the reflection cards, using a tiny brayer, having the ink on the edge of your brayer and coming across.
Oh, wow.
You can give her and ground her so she's got something to stand on.
That's such a simple technique, but so effective.
Yeah, it's really fun. So these mini braids are fantastic. They're just the Tim Holtz ones, the distress ones. But any mini brayer brand is going to work.
Yeah, I think I've got one somewhere because I used to think you had to brayer the ink onto stamps when I first started.
Yeah, well, it is a technique.
It is, but I didn't realise that you'd put the ink pad straight onto the stamp when I started.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Okay, so once you have finished and you're happy with your stamping on your tag, the best part of this adhesive alcohol ink paper is that I can just peel the backing off and stick it straight on to the background tag.
Now that is magic.
And then just adding some ribbon, and there's our tag done.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fun. So how about we've got our other ink, because I think we've got a little bit more time.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes.
We will stamp our little dragon, if I can find where he went. Oh, there he is.
Oh no, he's flown away.
He's here, it's all good. Okay, so this one we need to make sure is nice and dry. We'll give him a moon as well. So this one, there is plenty of masks out there, but sometimes they just don't have the size that you want. So this is just acetate that I have in my stash, and I've die cut my own circle from it.
Oh, die cutting, good thinking. I don't think I've ever die cut acetate before. I don't know why. I just haven't. There you go.
You need to add a little bit of a shim to it because it takes a little bit to get the die cut through it, but it works well. So
well,
there
if you can suddenly turn all your die cuts into masks as well, that just triples their use.
Exactly, absolutely. And I think if you're finding acetate too hard to cut through, the plastic dividers that you can get from Officeworks?
Oh, yeah.
So it's not the same as your plastic sleeves, but it's that thicker plastic. You can use that and die cut from that and use those as your masks and stencils. So we're just going to make sure this is nice and dry, and we will stamp our little Dodie. So we'll put him on a tree stump. So this is literally called tree stump if you're trying to find it.
Handy.
Okay. And our magnets on. Move that out a bit. And we might use a different colour. So this is a Card Deco dye ink. So just remember that dye inks on alcohol ink paper do take quite a while to dry.
Right.
It just gives a different colour on our tree stump. Okay, so we dry that off carefully. So this one's a great investment if you can find this online. It's a VS Sassoon. It's like a hair brush dryer thing.
Oh, okay.
Comes with all these attachments, but it just looks like your heat tool, so it's great.
Excellent. Now, Jeanette's just pointed out that if you do die cut the acetate and it doesn't go all the way through, you can usually easily just get your scissors into it and complete that. So that's a great tip.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll add our little dotty over the top.
And what colour are you using for that?
So this one's the Lavinia Stamped Elements ink, the graphite. I've kind of fallen in love with these inks. They're so inky, and they're beautiful colours.
Yeah, and nice to see like an oval shaped ink pad.
Yeah. They've got a good range of colours.
And I think having a good grey is also a good thing to add to your collection as well. Sometimes black's just that little bit too dark, so having something just slightly lighter can be really nice.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it. So I'm going to give him a bit of a dry off and I'll stamp him again. And this is just because we're working on the alcohol ink paper. So if you don't feel confident and you really want a crisp, clear stamp, use that technique of creating your background onto your alcohol ink paper and then just picking it up on your normal cardstock and stamp onto that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jen Faye was just asking, why can't you stamp both of the stamps at the same time?
Because I've put Dodie on top of the tree stump, so he's not sitting above it. But if you were having them separate, then you could do that. But Dodie is just sitting slightly on top of that tree stump. That's why I've done them separately. Okay. So he is super cute, but you can see that like he is not perfectly crisp. Well, I don't know if you can see, but I can tell he's not perfectly crisp and clear. And that is because we're stamping on the alcohol ink paper.
Yeah, so the ink kind of pulls in a bit, doesn't it?
It does. Whereas if I put him on just the cardstock with the alcohol ink on it, just shows the difference.
Yeah, we can see the difference now. Yeah.
So you can see because he's sitting on top, whereas the cardstock like pulls in that dye ink, so you get more of a crisp image. But it is personal preference. Depends on what you like to use and how much practice you want to go with.
Yeah. And Geeta was just asking, can you use archival ink on that paper?
Yes, you can. Yep. So as long as it's dry, yep. Archival ink is fine to use as well as stays on memento. So that's why I wanted to sort of have that collection of inks out. Personal preference or stash availability really is what you're going to use. So as long as your backgrounds are dry, then whatever ink you use. Because when I was first learning to use the alcohol inks, we'd always recommend using your dye inks over your solvent inks to stamp on your alcohol ink paper. As if you were stamping on watercolor paper, you would use your solvent inks over your dye inks so the water doesn't seep in. However, if it is completely dry, you can use the solvent inks over the top as well as your stays in place ink from Couture Creations.
Right. Excellent. Okay, well, let's get you back up and we'll finish up.
No worries.
Excellent. So wasn't that a fantastic demo? And I just love how Jen just gives us so many different options of ways of using the alcohol inks. And like you said, we mightn't always have that exact same paper, but just knowing we're going to get slightly different results. But there's always other things to experiment with. So Jen, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So you said you had a special. Did you just want to remind us what that was?
Yes, so 20% off the entire store until midnight Sunday night. So take advantage of it because you've got your tools, your adhesives, all your fairy hug stamps. We've got Lavinia stamps, all our cardstocks, everything, chipboard stamps, whatever you can find in our store. It's all 20% off. You don't have to add in a code or anything. It's already up on our website ready to go.
Excellent. And I'll just pop your link to your website in the comments again, so everyone should be able to find it. So go have a look.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Jen, so much for joining us today.
No worries. Thank you, everyone. Have fun.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Excellent. So I hope you did enjoy that demonstration with Jen from Peninsula Paper Craft Boutique. And as she said, go and check out their website. They've got all of those beautiful stamps there, the papers, the dyes, the inks, the blending tools, just so much for you to go have a play with. So yeah, go and check out peninsulapapercraft.com.au. And of course, leave them a review, leave a comment here on Facebook if you have any other questions, share us with your crafty friends, and of course, let everyone know that we're going to be here for a fantastic lineup. So thank you so much to Jen, and of course, thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again soon. So this is Michelle signing off. We hope you have a crafty day.